Спасибо
Пожалуйста.
большое. Здоровья, счастья.
Пожалуйста. For the past 7 years of your life, you've been living next to an active war zone. Only a couple of kilometers away from your native village, muddy trench warfare is claiming the lives of young soldiers on a weekly basis. Deadly landmines lie strewn about the landscape, showing absolutely no distinction between civilian or military footsteps. But we're not flipping through the pages of some history book. This is 2021, and this is Europe. Let's address something right away. It's very likely that you've heard of Eastern Ukraine. Maybe you even know a thing or two about who's fighting who and why they're fighting. Eastern Ukraine is the kind of place with the sort of name that will seemingly jump out of nowhere to dominate the news cycle and just as quickly slip back into obscurity once the Russian tanks have gone. Because Eastern Ukraine is a very mysterious place. But that could be an understatement. How do you build a life in the shadow of Europe's last and only active war? I went to Sloviansk to find out. Nestled between rustic farmland and old copper mines lies a rather modest and yet somewhat proud city, with all the usual characteristics of Soviet urbanism. On a normal day, Sloviansk is home to roughly 150,000 citizens, most of them native Russian speakers. But here in Sloviansk, no day is truly a normal day. 50,000 people have vanished. A whole third of its population is quite simply gone. But why? On a fateful day in April 2014, this city became the very first victim of the war in Donbass. On the 12th of April, armed rebels stormed City Hall, arresting pro-Ukrainian politicians and abducting journalists, while rallying under the moniker of Novorossiya, literally New Russia. Eventually, the central government managed to recapture the city, and a lot has happened here since then. But barely 30 minutes out, a fragile ceasefire agreement is being violated every day as soldiers take turns firing bullets at each other from their foxholes. Хорошо. Женя
Мира.
и Мира. Круто. Ну, хорошо. Да.
В Норвегии, наверное, так не делают люди просто.
Ну, это
культура, да, наш менталитет просто.
Now, having tried their local watermelon-flavored candy, Mira tells me in English, I'm 13 years old. These kids were incredibly nice and very polite. I was curious indeed, but I was afraid I'd risk spoiling their day if I started asking them about the war. Nonetheless, we entered some rather difficult subjects very quickly.
Но вообще, в принципе, очень многие люди тут потеряли свои места работы именно из-за того, что позакрывались вот эти заводы. Но у нас было очень много мест работы. Ну, то есть даже наш популярный, вот место отдыха у нас популярное было, это Славянский курорт. Там грязевые ванны были, то есть это лечебный центр был, но сейчас все впало в разруху. И
Только царь-батюшка вам поможет.
Я вижу. Это типа сложная ситуация или...
Просто смотри, легче же закрыть завод и получить за это сразу же деньги людям, которые наверху стоят. А те люди, которые приходили туда, зарабатывали, это постоянно заработок, всем на это, ну, как бы плевать немножко. И их повыгоняли, получается, все получили свои деньги. И, ну, то, что дальше, это все не работает, это, до этого уже никому не делает. Это, конечно, грустно.
Now, it's my last day here in the Donetsk region. I've been searching for a memorial plaque in memory of a politician called Vladimir Rybak. Now, I've asked around and the locals are surprisingly apprehensive about telling me where this is. So I'm afraid I'm looking for a needle in a Sloviansk-sized haystack. Ну, можно снимаю?
Не, мне не надо.
Нет, окей.
Я не люблю.
Давай. Честно говоря, я студент-журналист из Норвегии.
Откуда?
Я ищу мемориальную доску памяти Владимира Рыбака. Вы знаете, где это?
Мемориал, Рыбак. А кто он такой? Что нам там... Расскажи историю, подскажи.
Ну, как вас зовут?
Меня Галина зовут.
Галина. Я Бенджамин.
Очень приятно.
Очень приятно, да.
Now, quick little disclaimer. At this point, Galina doesn't believe my story, and she asks me to prove it. So I reach into my pocket, I grab my passport, so I can show it to her.
Попросила это, сама ж без очков.
Да, я
Просто думала,
это правда, это правда.
Это же шутка. Есть же люди, что любят пошутить, поюморить. А документы есть? Паспорт? Удостоверение. Мне интересно. Не верится, что с Норвегией.
А вы были здесь, когда...
Война?
Когда война. Это, 2 месяца, да?
В общем, где-то так.
Апрель.
Май, июнь. Я такого ничего не видела, люди видели. Я видела детей, которые от выстрела, ты понимаешь?
Думаю, я понимаю, что вы сказали, да.
От выстрела только что-то там, где-то выстрелят, а он уже стоит, плачет, потому что видно, что-то видел, пережил, и, как уже стресс получил.
Это очень интересно, потому что, это Украина, Европа. Но, честно говоря, это страна. Да? По-твоему, почему война Украины?
Не знаю.
Ты не знаете?
Непонятно.
Нет, из-за России, из-за Украины.
Я так и не поняла.
Нет. Понял. Я вижу украинские слова. Слови. Слава Украине, героям слава. Это правда, да? Героям слава.
Не будет никаких конфликтов, ничего абсолютно не будет. Сейчас идем. Через мой труп ты его снимешь флаг, ты понял?
Ура! Браво!
Иди нахуй отсюда, говно!
In the end, I think I understand why no one felt like showing me his memorial site. After 7 years, it's clear that this trauma is still very real. The UN estimates that the total number of people affected by this conflict has risen to up to 3.5 million people. That's more than the entire metropolitan population of Oslo, Copenhagen, and Helsinki combined. These are the people who, in one way or another, find themselves at the hands of a seemingly endless cycle of military escalation and cooldowns. Even through my chance encounters, I was lucky enough to hear vivid accounts and share laughs with the people who call this place home. Before long, it was also time to say goodbye to Galina.
Ладно, поехала я дальше.
Давайте.
Счастливо. Всего хорошего.
До свидания. Удачи вам.
Спасибо большое. Здоровья, счастья.
Пожалуйста. A war always has two sides. But as much as I would like to show you what's on the other side of those trenches, there's currently not a lot I can do. As the rest of Ukraine is emerging from the painful memories of its totalitarian Soviet past, the DPR is doing whatever it can to relive them.
Well, okay class, welcome back from break. We're looking at a rather strange website here. I don't think many of you have seen the .su before, because that's for the Soviet Union. Yeah, so a bunch of you have asked me how do I get press accreditation in the DPR? So we're gonna look at that. I'm gonna pull that up. Sorry. For photo and video shooting on the DPR territory, press accreditation is required. All right. You should send in advance the aim of a visit, the duration of a visit, with attached scanned copy of a passport. I guess that could be any passport. A press card, a letter from an editorial office with a request for getting accreditation, a photo of a journalist at the email. Let's see, pressa.dnr@mail.ru. RU. That's Russia.
Thank you, Professor. The DPR is part of a network of Russia-backed breakaway states. In this club, we also find Transnistria, Abkhazia, South Ossetia, and the DPR's northern neighbor, the Luhansk People's Republic. The separatist leadership is getting a lot of help from their biggest sponsor. On the other side of those trenches, people are applying for and getting Russian citizenship in rapid numbers. Let's take a step back. What does all of this really say about a place? Foreigners needing a permit to film or photograph anything? The glorification of a bygone communist era? Heavy economic sanctions and isolation from the international community? It does evoke thoughts of a certain Northeast Asian country that we're all very familiar with. See, the North Korean comparison doesn't end quite there. The Russian saboteurs know that war is very expensive. If you live in any of these places, you might be surprised to find out that there's a network operating in your country that's actively trying to finance the separatist regime that brought down Malaysian Airlines MH17, killing 298 innocent civilians. The model was invented in North Korea, but it was transported to Europe a long time ago. To get past the sanctions, you set up a friendship association. In fringe political circles, you organize events and campaign for the legitimacy of the regime. You might even attract some contrarian academics to join you by saying things like, "The West gets it totally wrong. These brave people are fighting the encroachment of Western imperialism." Finally, you organize tourism. As you smile and pay lip service on Russian state television, you get as many people as possible to bring US dollars, helping the regime purchase war materials on the black market. Crimea, Donetsk, Pyongyang. It's all the same. In addition to the uncertainty created by this ebb and flow, high tide, low tide situation, the region is also grappling with a whole host of other problems. Whether it's lack of access to clean drinking water in some places, or inadequate health services in others, many of these problems have their roots in an overburdened and sometimes neglected public infrastructure. Here in the Ukrainian Donetsk, investments aren't exactly flourishing. Few investors feel comfortable placing their money in what appears to be a rather volatile region. Unemployment here remains among the highest in Europe. And as our friend Zhenya told us, corruption is a big problem. The aggregated impact of these issues has been the exodus of hundreds of thousands of normal, regular people. Some have gone east to the Russian Federation, while the majority has gone west into the safer and more prosperous parts of Ukraine. Back in peacetime, only 4 years before the war began, somebody had the idea of naming a university here after a certain Swedish chemist. His scientific discoveries paved the way for modern warfare, but he also has another legacy. One day, when peace has finally come to eastern Ukraine, someone could deserve an award in his name.